Bittensor family, it's Jeremy, aka School Crypto, bringing you another Bittensor video. So I just wanted to share with you this insight that I got from a video that was from Token 2049, which is a very famous crypto conference that's in Singapore, I believe. And there are a few people that were on the panel, one being Jacob Steves, Const, the founder of Bittensor, and as well as the CEOs of Manifolds Labs, which actually owns Targon Compute, and then the CEO of Macrocosmos, which has a few subnets like Data Universe and IOTA. They have subnet 1 to Apex, which is a pre-trading subnet. So there was a theme that Const brought up that I thought was interesting, and I wanted to sort of dig into a little bit. And that was just the theme of failing faster, which I thought was really fascinating. So he spoke about his experience in machine learning and just constantly failing, doing experiments, doing thousands of them, and then nothing ever really working. And then even when something does work, he kind of questions it and thinks that something's wrong. So, and that's kind of like the ethos of Bittensor as a whole, is trying to fail faster than everybody else in order to get those innovations and get those breakthroughs and get those types of products in the market that will be levels ahead of the rest of the competition. So this is kind of the theme on a lot of different levels. So as far as creating the architecture of Bittensor, that's something that, Const and the rest of the people in the Open Tensor Foundation, OTF, constantly are working on. So, earlier this year, they came out with DTAO, which is basically a system in which they created liquidity pools for all the individual subnets in the ecosystem, and then basically, divvying out emissions based on the price, the tau price of that particular subnet. And then just recently, a few weeks ago, they came out with an update where instead of the price being the indicator of the emissions, it would actually be the positive volume that goes into these subnets liquidity pools. So, basically what the problem was and what the failure was basically that a lot of the subnets that built up that liquidity over the last handful of months, they didn't have as much of a price impact when there were a little bit of sell-offs and the price wasn't moving. So like basically if you didn't have any volume, either positive or negative, the price would basically stay the same, and they would be incentivized to really not do much, basically get more positive volume in their liquidity pools, and they can kind of sit on their hands and just kind of get emissions. So basically what this new tau flow mechanism does is teams have to consistently get positive inflows in their liquidity pools, and that's going to kind of create more developments, more innovation for these subnets, and they pretty much have to do more, and they can't just sit on the big liquidity that they stacked up. So again, I think that was an adjustment and an iteration that the OTF and the Bittensor team as a whole kind of recognized, and they did something about it. So they recognized that the old way wasn't working, kind of not look at it maybe as a failure, but look at it as an adjustment to kind of better the ecosystem. And then, as far as the subnets go, they're constantly trying to figure out if their incentive mechanism and their liquidity flow and everything is kind of working good. And I think like there's plenty of failures that happen all the time with subnet owners, and that's, figuring out how to make sure that the miners don't game the system, which has happened periodically throughout its time. And basically some of those failures are, what they call Sybil attacks, which is basically miners just spamming the network and creating, a bunch of unique IDs so they can basically get all the emissions for not really doing too much work. And then there's basically weight copying as well, which is basically when a miner copies another miner's work, and then publishes it and then tries to get emissions that way as well. So these subnet owners really fail on a daily basis just in terms of combating, the nefarious activities involved in their subnet alone. So that's something that everybody really needs to kind of be aware of in order for the emissions to flow to the good actors, the good miners that are actually producing good work and that's developing a better product for the subnet as a whole. But like just the whole idea in terms of like the innovation that needs to be created, needs to happen through failure, so Const basically said, as a machine learning scientist, he constantly does thousands upon thousands upon thousands of experiments, most of them failing, but just iterating just a little bit, making an adjustment here, making an adjustment there. And then just the more compute that you can execute, just like in your subnet with Bittensor as a whole, the closer that you're going to get to those breakthroughs and those innovations. And just based on the simple fact that you have every single day miners competing with one another, they have to try things. They have to try new things. They have to do certain experiments in order to get their status to the top, because there's some subnets like Ridges that is like a winner take all, Autotopia, a winner take all, so basically if you don't get number one, then you're not going to be getting your emissions for that day. So, and that's kind of the theme of the ecosystem, is just keep on failing until you get something that really works and something that ultimately can break through into a new innovation that will stand out amongst the rest of its competition, whether it's in crypto or whether it's in Web 2 or AI as a whole. That's kind of the theme in which Const kind of, pounded the point on in terms of how they're going to be able to get to the top, get to mainstream, have millions or billions of people using these products, is to constantly fail and be able to, come up with solutions that may have not been thought of before, so just basically having an open mind, having an idea of, trying out new ideas and being able to ultimately, get to a point where, you're ultimately ticking off all the boxes in terms of everything that you can do in order to get to that final solution. So yeah, that's basically what I wanted to give to you today. Just like, the art of failure, the art of iteration, the art of experimentation, that's all happening on Bittensor. And when you have thousands of people all around the world, that'll turn into tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of miners working on these problems, trying to find a solution. Ultimately, it's going to come from experimentation, failing over and over again, iterating over and over again until you get that aha moment where ultimately you find something that no one had ever thought of, and that was based on just the thousands upon thousands of reps that you're putting in order to get there. And that's just life, right? I mean, I think, we all go through failures and we all go through times where it's tough and, we beat ourselves up for it, and, it ultimately, leads to, breakthroughs in our lives, and it leads to, learning moments, and it leads to us being able to make adjustments and in order to get to the goals that we want to achieve. And I think that's the same thing, the same type of ethos within Bittensor. So yeah, that's kind of the point I wanted to make, is that, we're constantly seeing new things come up and new innovations happening and occurring in Bittensor. And I think the reason for that is the experimentation, the failures, the iterations, and that's leading to all these benchmarks being surpassed, and all these, new products and services that are beating the centralized competition occurring because of that fact. So that's all I got for you today. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your weekend, and look forward to seeing you guys soon. Take care.